Thank you. Thank you for those prayers. Thank you for the prayers earlier. Thank you to the praise team. That song saying, I need prayers from my friends, need my friends to pray for me, was a request because I needed the prayers, and the elders that were up here, they need your prayers also. So thank you, praise team, for honoring that request. For those, I think I know most everyone here, but just in case, my name is Mike Johnson. I'm a member at Oasis. And I come up here a couple times a year at Andrew's request. The first job that I had as a young boy was delivering newspapers. Gospel means good news, right? So I've retired, so now I'm going back to my first job, bringing good news. And I have, as usual, for those who are young or young at heart, I have some puzzles up here. That are prophet-based. There's some word searches, a couple crossword puzzles. If I can have someone come up and maybe help, or just come up here and get something for you guys. Come on, you can come up. There's plenty there. Hand them out if you like. At the end, as is common, you come up and share this with me, and I have something to share with you afterwards. It's in my good news bag. Before we get started, I do want to say a little bit of story here. Anyone here ever go to Costco? Yeah, a couple people here. I like Costco. When I lived in Hawaii almost 40 years ago, 30 years ago, Costco came to Hawaii, and that was a big thing. We all went out, loved the hot dogs and stuff, and it was always a fun time. So when they opened up one here in Hendersonville, I thought, oh, this is great. I love Costco. Now, one of the reasons I love Costco is because of the free handouts. They give you little things. They'll give you a little piece of candy. They'll give you a little bit something. My wife, Barb, she's different. She's going straight to the produce. That's on this way. I said, I'll meet you. I'm going to the far end of the store so that I could check every display that's handing out something. And then I'll meet you at the vegetables and stuff after I've had my... And I'm gracious. I take an extra one for her if it's something I know she likes. But I was there the other day, and there was... I mean, this is getting to the point where I like it so much, I'm beginning to know the names of the ladies that are handing this out. And I'm coming up to someone, I didn't know her name before, but her name is Leslie, and she was handing out organic gummy bears. Now, I don't know what was organic, either the gummy or the bear, but they're sitting there in these little white trays, and I'm looking at them, and each one has a yellow one, an orange one, a red one, and a purple one. The next one has the same thing, orange one, yellow, red, and purple, all the way down, lined up along one tray, about 12 long, 3 across, and the next tray, another 12 long and 3 across. And I said, that is amazing. That you have this ability to organize things. You must be very organized and orderly. And she said, yes, I am. And she says, thank you for noticing. She said, you're the first person to mention this. And I'm glad that she got heard as a person, but part of this is that I love patterns. I love recognizing patterns and seeing patterns. So I saw this pattern, and I said, that's incredible that you do that. I love patterns so much that it actually was part of my job. Before I retired, I worked in a neurosurgical suite where my job was to do brain mapping. So this is a picture of a brain map that I created, and it shows the connecting fibers in the different parts of the brain. Now, the colors tell which direction they're going. If it's vertical, it's blue. If it's forward, it's green, and if it's back and forth, it's red. Now, I can look at that, and I can see patterns. I can see where the speech center is. I can see where the motor cortex is. I can see where the optic radii are. I love finding patterns and things. So today, we're going to look at some patterns. Let me pull this up. Because I think that the Bible teaches us in patterns also. The Bible tells a really grand sacred story, but it's also a personal map of the soul's journey. We go through stages. We go through innocence. We go through exile. We go towards freedom, death, resurrection, and back to union. Whether we read the Bible literally or symbolically or both, it serves as both a mirror and a guide to our spiritual transformation. And I think that's what Paul is talking about when he says in Romans 1:16, 17. This is what I want you to be able, as I read this, reflect on this as we go through the message today. It says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith." And that's the part I want you to focus on. From faith to faith it is written, and they shall live by faith. I'm going to stop here for a second and just ask for God's prayer. Saying, God, we just ask that you bless this time together, that the words that I share from your gospel are the words that you want people to hear, and that your spirit just be infused in this place, and that you touch hearts as you see fit in every person here. Amen. Now, most biblical commentators think that this statement of faith to faith is a temporal reference. Temporal means it's a timeline, that this is a series of events that happen from one time to another. And what Paul's saying is this is going to happen multiple times in our life. And it's not hopscotch willy-nilly. It's a process. It's a pattern of development of our faith. Now, I've also recognized in the past couple months a pattern that's been going on as Andrew has been preaching. Maybe you have seen it also. Back in May, Andrew started preaching on Oasis becoming a second covenant church. He's referenced Galatians often in this continued series. He has stressed repeatedly there is nothing we can add to the righteousness that we receive from Jesus. Nothing, right? Nothing can be added to the wine and that will change our standing in God's kingdom. Jesus is what? He is enough. Amen? Now, knowingly or not, Andrew has been preaching on the first of the Beatitudes. What's the first of the Beatitudes? What does it say? Blessed are those who are the poor in spirit. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? Well, to be poor in spirit means that we have to humble ourselves. We're accepting and reliant on God's Spirit, not ours. We have to realize and accept that there's nothing we can add or need to add to the righteousness of Christ. Christ's righteousness alone is the key to the kingdom. And we preached on this before. Anything that we try to add to the righteousness is really an attempt at vain glory. Vain glory is a byproduct of pride. It's characterized by a sense of inflated self-worth. It's motivated by an empty desire for praise, self-promotion, and an admiration of men instead of an admiration of God. This attempt at vainglory is an attempt to build mansions of status in the heavenlies. We're trying to add something that's going to make us more important in heaven. And don't confuse this with the John 14:2, where the Greek word is used monai, and it's often translated as that there are many mansions. That really doesn't say mansions, it says dwelling places. There are many dwelling places in God's heaven. No one has one mansion of status over the other, but we all have expansive homes, and we're welcomed to be there. So Andrew's preaching on the Beatitudes kind of puts an important marker as a goalpost for our faith journey. He's talking about what is this goalpost? It's that second covenant. Okay? Paul in Galatians also makes a reference and says that the law was our guardian until Christ came. So he says, Paul is saying here is where the start was. The law was the start, but it's in the Beatitudes, it's in that the second covenant church becomes realized. So Paul, pointing to the first covenant as the starting point of our faith-to-faith journey. Now, he's pretty hard on Galatia when they try to reverse course. They try to go back. And a friend of mine shared this analogy. For those of us that love food, it's kind of like saying that here's Paul's promise. he's going to take us to a buffet that has the best food possible, and guess what? It's free. But what do the people in Galatia say? No, I want to go back to McDonald's. I want something that is just solid. But you know what? That stuff will kill you. So this idea of what is this journey from a first covenant, which is the Torah, to the second covenant, which is the Beatitudes, that these are kind of like the goalposts for this faith-to-faith journey. And they're aligned in some ways if you look at them. In the first covenant, the Torah defines righteousness in terms of obedience to God and His law. The Beatitudes defines righteousness in terms of what? A transformed heart. First covenant Torah that shows what God commands. The Beatitudes show what? What God blesses. First covenant Torah says, do not murder. Second covenant, Matthew, don't even be angry. First covenant Torah says, do not commit adultery. Second covenant says, don't even lust in your heart. First covenant says, love your neighbor. The second covenant says, love your enemies. First covenant says, eye for an eye. The second covenant says, turn the other cheek. First covenant is a transactional God. He's dualistic. We're exchanging things for right and wrong. In the second covenant, the God is transcendent. His focus is on faith, mercy, and forgiveness. Now, Jesus is the one who fulfills both of these, but also transforms the heart. So how do we get from that first covenant to the second covenant? Well, we just read in Romans that Paul trusts in what? The Bible to give us it. So let's look at the Bible here. Here's a list of the books of the Bible. You see Old Testament, New Testament, but kind of look what's right in the middle here. What is that? The book of the prophets. And this is really just in the middle, from Exodus to Elijah, the first prophet, about 450 years. From Malachi to the Sermon on the Mount, about 450 years, right in the middle. You know, I think middles are important, but often overlooked. Anyone here a middle child? Okay. My sister, Charlene, was a middle child, and I don't think she got half the attention that I did as a firstborn, or my youngest brother, Tommy, did as the baby. But she is an incredible human being. She is the glue that keeps our family together. And I don't think we pay enough attention to the middles. So the prophets here in the middle are important as well. The middles, anyone here like Oreo cookies? What would an Oreo cookie be without a middle? Right? It'd be a crusty black cracker with no flavor. And I know people who will actually eat the middle and leave the crackers alone. Especially if you get that mega fit. The prophets here are in the middle as well. And the prophets are important because they really are, in a sense, the runway for Jesus' messianic ministry. There are 234 messianic prophecies that Jesus fulfills that came out of the prophets. In Jeremiah 3:31, he actually says, this is where the second covenant is coming. He's predicting it. He's prophesying this. It isn't like here's the Torah, and then here's the second covenant. There's a process of development that happens, particularly in Jeremiah's life, that points to there's something in this faith walk that is pointing to the second covenant. This message of this faith-to-faith walk, I think, can be seen very effectively, and we're going to look at, is actually the second of the Beatitudes, which is what? Blessed are those that weep. Now, some translations say mourn, but mourn is a word that really doesn't give it justice. Mourn means that there's no way you can mistake looking at this person, that they are grieving. And how do we know that really? As we see that in people weeping. The message for this talk is that this is to say that there's prophetic wisdom for an age of outrage. Anyone else see a outrage around us today? Outrage means that there is an outward expression of anger that permeates our society. Look at Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, email barrages, news feeds, and we will see that there is an outrage or an outward expression of anger that's just kind of overflowing. We suffer polarization, disconnected friendships, as we either vilify or demonize prominent leaders that we either agree or disagree with. And all it creates is dissension and separation. Hopefully, we will be able to tap some prophetic wisdom in this faith process that can help us in our current age of outreach. To explain this process of faith and this faith-to-faith walk, I'm going to reference someone named Brian McLaren. He's a Christian theologian, and he says there's a 4-stage model of faith development. And the 4 stages that all of us go through in our faith walk, sometimes once very soon, sometimes in multiple times, is we go from simplicity to perplexity, to complexity, to perplexity, to harmony. In simplicity, our faith is simple, dualistic, moralistic, judgmental, good or evil, right or wrong. God is the supreme ruler. Then there's complexity. Our faith can be a little more complex or pragmatic. And instead of good and evil, we see success and failures. We see winners and losers. We see God as an encourager and a guide. It goes into perplexity, where our faith becomes uncertain. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. We say, where are you, God? Particularly in times of loss or suffering. And we look for truth and authenticity, honesty versus dishonesty. But you know what? God sometimes feels like a mystery or maybe a myth. And then there's a place of harmony where our faith is resolved. We find compassion, inclusion, connection with others instead of division, and we see God. We see God as a loving, creative presence that we know because of our experiences with Him. The prophets, or at least the British prophets, understood this and give us good examples. But you know what? They start out angry, right? If you read these, this is from Nahum. Behold, I am against you, declares the Lord of hosts. I will lift your skirts over your face. I will show your nakedness to the nations and your shame to the kingdoms. That's not a very polite statement. Come out of the Bible. How about Ezekiel? I will sentence you to the punishment of women who commit adultery, who shed blood. I will bring upon you the blood vengeance of my wrath and jealous anger. Or how about Malachi? God will smear dung on your faces. These were angry, angry men. They started out this way. But the prophets were more than just prophetic messages about the coming of Jesus. They were critics of their age. They spoke truth to power. They called out societal oppression, iniquities, injustice. They started out simple and angry, then things get complex and disruptive to the perplexing moments of uncertainty and exasperation, and they finally to their nonetheless moments where they're aligned with deeper understanding and appreciation of God. An example is Habakkuk. He prophesied to Judah and argued that God about why he let injustices continue in Judah. And through the whole 3 chapters of Habakkuk, he's into that until the last 3 verses. And he has what's called a nevertheless moment. And in those nevertheless moments, he says that he proclaims and rejoices in God, whatever the circumstances. So Habakkuk went through this process of simplicity, complexity, perplexity, and then harmony with God. So over time, the prophets show this connection. And what's underneath this is that anger itself is not wrong. Anger can be deserved, even virtuous, particularly when it motivates us to begin seeking a necessary change. Anger tells us what is really important to us. Over time, from the simplicity to perplexity, the prophets begin seeing a connection to their anger and a place of deep sadness and sorrow. And I would put to you that most anger is a covering for something that's a deep sadness or sorrow. Until they found their nevertheless moments. The best example of this is probably Jeremiah. You know what Jeremiah is called sometimes? The weeping prophet. Interesting. Jeremiah, in his anger stage, warned that the people had broken their covenant with God, that the people of Israel were forsaking Yahweh and instead were worshiping the idols of Baal, a Canaanite fertility god, and they would soon suffer famine, foreign conquest, plunder, and captivity in a land of strangers. So his job was not just to prophesy the coming Messiah, but to make an indictment and a discovery and a display of the conditions around him. The prophets spoke truth to the whole community. The evils that prophet Jeremiah pointed out and condemned were necromancy, human sacrifice, idolatry, deception, false prophecy, prostitution, injustice to the poor, bribery, and slavery. Jeremiah's prophecies so enraged those that they did not want to hear that. They plotted to kill him and put him in a prison. Eventually, they threw him in a cistern and left him to starve. He began in anger, as all prophets do, but he did not stay there. He moved into lamentation. Jeremiah says that, and on my head were waters, and my tears, a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. It was his tears that transformed him, and as a result, gave us the most stunning and I think profound prophecy out of Jeremiah. It says that the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. I will put my law in their minds. I will write it in their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. For I will forgive their wickedness and remember their sins no more. What a blessing. And here is where I need to make a confession about why this is important to me. About 4 months ago, I was having an important conversation with someone that I live with, and the kind of conversation that should have happened face to face. But this conversation was happening with me in the hallway and this other person in a room down the hall. And it was in a very loud voice that this conversation was going on. And I was leaning up against the wall with my stocking foot up against the wall, and in a moment of anger, I stomped my foot against the wall, and I put a hole in it, exactly the size of my heel. Now, punching a hole in the wall, the first thing that told me was that, well, they never made walls like this in Chicago, where I grew up. In Chicago, we had lath and plaster walls, lath that was every inch or two apart and hard plaster. So obviously it was the wall's fault that this happened. Tennessee flimsy walls, half-inch plasterboard, 12-inch studs, but that was just an excuse. Actually, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed. I have a family history of rage, somewhat like you did, Rick. And I thought that I had been past that. Right around that time, Andrew put out a text asking help for the preaching lineup. You remember what I said, Andrew? I said, I don't know that I can do this. I didn't feel worthy. I wasn't living like I had the peace of Christ fully in my heart. Well, I prayed through that moment, and since I've been to some counseling and working through some of this with my friends that I meet with weekly. And thank you, Rick, for sharing the book, Tears of Things, with me. It's a big part of this. But I had to get in touch with my anger, because as I'm getting older, I find that I am angrier than I would like. And sometimes I'm not in touch with it. I have been angry that my parents and grandparents, all my aunts and uncles, Two of my siblings have all passed away before me, yet they still live vividly in my mind. I have been angry that a brain tumor has taken away my body's ability to regulate metabolism or my endocrine functions, and it's left me dependent on a truckload of medications. I've been angry that I'm losing strength, flexibility, and stamina as I get older. I have been angry that I have gone from a founder to a flounder. Founder to a flounder. I finished my career as a co-founder of a neurosurgical center of excellence where I could do brain mapping, and now I don't have that purpose, and I feel like a flounder instead of a founder. I have been angry that some of my relationships that used to be easy are now difficult with the challenges of aging. I have been angry that our education systems are so underfunded that our students have to line up for handouts in a park in order to meet their basic schooling needs. I've been angry that an elderly woman that we handed out a Thanksgiving box to is living in a rundown two-room home and will be forever saddled with a $90,000 bill in medical debt for a unnecessary life flight from Kentucky to Vanderbilt. She will never be free of that indebtedness. Some of my anger will motivate me for good. The rest I look to be transformed by my tears and sadness. As I grieve this sadness, which is underneath my anger, I come to the realization that I am just as broken as the people I'm angry with, and possibly even more. That all of us, including my enemies, are all deserving of Jesus' love, his redemption, his power, his grace, and as I accept this more, it brings me closer to a place of compassion and cherished belonging. That's my story. That's my confession. I would bet that many of you have your own in your faith-to-faith journey. Now, note that this way of the prophets and this faith-to-faith journey is an invitation. It's not a command. We all have choices. But the invitation is to go on that journey from becoming a first covenant believer to a second covenant Christian. Not all the prophets matured, and they didn't finish their faith journey. There were unfinished prophets, and God still used them. Nahum and Obadiah were unfinished. They never found their nevertheless moments. Jonah, after preaching to Nineveh very successfully, stayed angry under the tree. In Jonah 4:9 it says, "But God said to Jonah, 'Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?' 'It is,' he said. 'I'm so angry, I wish I were dead.'" John the Baptizer, unfinished prophet, but Jesus still honored him. Said in Matthew 11, "Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there is no one arisen who is greater." No one greater than John the Baptizer. But then he says, the one who is least in the kingdom is greater than he. He never made it from the first covenant Torah to that place of the kingdom that's promised in the Beatitudes. We have that choice. We can hold on to our anger. You know what? It feels powerful. And this journey, this faith journey through complexity to perplexity to harmony is challenging. But take heed, because Paul says in Ephesians, holding on to your anger can create double strongholds. And if we stay in our rage and our resentment too long, we will righteously and unthinkingly pass the hurt on to others in ever new directions. And in this, we injure our souls and we injure the souls of others in ways that we don't even recognize. So what are the takeaways of this message? I'm going to echo what Rick said earlier. Choose your influencers wisely. Because in Jeremiah it says, this is what the Lord Almighty says, do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds and not from the mouth of the Lord. So when you look into the echo chamber of the internet, listen carefully. If the prophets are targeting people in leadership, the bad actors, and not the systemic problems of our society, they're probably not godly. The prophets, with the exemption of John the Baptist, did not attack the leadership, but rather the society as a whole. If there are injustices, then we all share in that collective burden. Second takeaway, don't be afraid of your tears. They are both healing, and this is for men, especially. Don't be afraid of your tears, but it's for everybody. These tears are both healing and transformative. Now, Andrew, whether he knows of the pattern of he's preaching on the Beatitudes, he's been talking about tears because he's inviting testimonies. Testimonies are stories of transformation, and they're stories with tears. Don't be afraid of your tears. This is temporary. There are no more tears in heaven. How do I know? Because Eric Clapton said so. 1992, the song we released, Tears in Heaven. The last line, it says, there's no tears in heaven. Interestingly, he stopped performing that song in 2004. He asked why. He says, I've finished the grieving process, and I don't have to sing this song anymore. The tears had transformed him. Don't be afraid of your tears. How do we also know? Because the Bible says so. Revelation 24. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Don't be afraid of your tears. Why? Because it's biblical. The only book in the Bible named after an emotion is the book of Lamentations. Jeremiah is said to have written that as a way of expressing grief over the people's exile from Jerusalem when they were invaded by the Babylonians. And lastly, don't be afraid of your tears, because we're not alone. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. He sobbed over the city of Jerusalem. He wept at the death of his friend Lazarus, and his final sadness in the Garden of Gethsemane, his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. I'm going to close with three things. Worship team, if you want to come up and get ready. First, as a reminder that we do not judge too harshly, nor hold ourselves up too righteously, I'm going to share the story of an angel with the torch and the pail. An angel was walking down the streets of the world, carrying a torch in one hand and a pail of water in the other. A woman asked the angel, "What are you doing with that torch and pail?" The angel said, "With the torch, I'm burning down the mansions in heaven, and with the pail, I'm putting out the fires in hell." This is the only way we'll ever know who really loves God. Secondly, I want to share with you a reminder that I've been reflecting on daily. And this is, I have a list of sayings and scriptures on my wardrobe that I look at every time I get dressed. And this one I added recently. It says, if we have no peace, it's because we've forgotten that we belong to each other. So when I'm upset or unrest, who am I not including in my circle? Am I alone, or am I really believing that we belong to one another? Lastly, as I said that this may be hard to read, but if you just listen, I was saying I need my friends to pray for me. This is a prayer that I'm going to pray now, and ask that you pray the similar prayer to me if you can. And that's what I call a prophetic blessing. And the prayer goes like this. May you be blessed to see in your anger not just a danger, but an opportunity. May you be blessed to see in your anger a window into what you really love. May you be blessed to see in your anger a pathway to sadness, and may your sadness sweeten your anger until it's transformed into the energy of love. May you come to see indifference, complacency, apathy, and self-centeredness within you signs not of a lack of anger, but of our lack of love. May we welcome anger as a source of information about what you love, about what needs protection and repair, and about the courage and strength needed to make this world a more joyful and peaceful place. May your anger lead you to sadness. May your sadness lead you to love, so that you meet the tears of things with a heart of bottomless compassion. May you be angry about what deserves anger. May you experience such a transformation of your anger that you become an agent of loving transformation in our world. May the deep wisdom of God guide you into your anger so that you may join with Jesus in weeping for the world, so that you may groan with the creative spirit in the loving labor pains of a better tomorrow. This concludes the message. May you take the prayer at heart and share it with others. If you want to bring up your kids or whatever, bring up your puzzles, your games, I'd love to see them. And remember I said middles are important? Well, I have Oreos with lemon middles. I have Oreos with peanut butter middles. And I have Oreos with mega middles. So if you want to come up and grab a cookie, that would be great. I also have, if you're interested, I have printed out some copies of the prophetic blessings. We're going to let the praise team close us out. Thank you so much. That's a perfect song to end this message. That's so blessed. Welcome to Potluck. I have cookies if anybody wants. Come on up. Otherwise, get some later. And God bless everybody. Shauna, could you put the last slide up on the presentation? If anyone is interested, keep going. There. These are 3 books that I would highly recommend if you want to walk into this idea of faith after doubt, The Tears of Things, or Cherished Belonging. They're all excellent books.